Okay, we are recording. Val will let you start us out.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Meg, for welcoming me back to talk about my time during the program. My name is Val Francois, and I'm an event planner slash floral designer running my own company. It's called the Social Butterflies Events, and it's actually alongside my undergrad best friend who also participated in the program. Choosing an MMH felt kind of natural as the next step in continuing my education. I hadn't really considered other programs as heavily as this one because I felt like this just made more sense to me as soon as I had heard about it. Already enjoying the events industry, I was seeking an educational program that supported my love for events while also sharing more insights on the practical skills and the business side of hospitality, really. And I feel like that's really what I got through the program. My experience, albeit was limited because of the pandemic and having virtual learning, was still pretty special. We all know that we basically weren't allowed to do our jobs for months. And the focus for me and Paige became how can we create better business practices and who could we meet and network with to keep us on track for our goals. Um, We've said it before also that like the MMH really took us from being party planners and just focusing on like design and making rooms look pretty to more so being focused as business owners. So like knowing how to run our business and what things we need to be paying attention to for predictions and future broadcasts and things of where we were going and where we were headed. Um, there's a lot that I've learned from experience because I've been a floral designer for about 10 years now. So I've known a lot about back end of events and the inner workings of design and stuff like that. I'm a floral designer by nature, but I felt like going into the program gave me a lot of insight into everyday practices that we were doing in our business and just being able to be better at doing those things, working smarter, not harder. I graduated in May of 2021 and concentrated in digital marketing. And there are notes and lessons and like speakers that I still communicate with now and I still think about to this day because a lot of the moments that happened in class with different questions and concepts that we were learning, I still have like full circle moments going back to those concepts. Um, there's an incredible amount of support and encouragement throughout the program and beyond, even as an alum, to be curious. We ended up planning the end of the year celebration for our class. We've continued to be involved in like the summit that happened last year and just being invited back for things like this and as well as encouraged to participate in alumni events a lot. I think that niching down in the choice of a master's program has proven to be really helpful too, because I've found that a lot of the information and knowledge that your professors are sharing is specific to your interests and it's specific to your career path. And because they're an expert in their fields, they're giving you the most accurate information that you could possibly get. SHA does a really great job of making sure that you're well rounded with the speakers and experiences outside of the classroom, but that you're also like pretty current in the way that the landscape changes and evolves. I found that a lot in my marketing class that the materials that we were reading are just current trends and like relative to what's going on to you. In interviewing and networking, I've seen that people's interest is more piqued when you talk about an MMH because not everybody knows what it is or what it means. And it makes them more intrigued to get to know you. And it's in turn displays a dedication I've learned and like a confidence in this industry that also makes you feel like you've come out of the program as an expert and more confident in your own abilities because that's what I got the most out of the program is that just being able to have MMH after my name puts a spring in my step a little bit that like I can say that I have this and that I know what I'm talking about. This next slide that I have is a little bit more about my business. This first photo is a Indian wedding setup that we did. The middle photo is a baby shower. The last photo was actually after the program. We did an event for the Massachusetts Commission on Status of Women. They do a heroines brunch every year, and they brought my company in about 2 or 3 months before to finish helping them create the program and helping them set up. And we ended up doing design for them on the day of as well. We were contracted to make about 200 single stem roses for them to present to each of the heroines. And the heroines are women from all over the state that just were voted by people in their networks to just recognize the work that they're doing and like the impact that they have. And then this next video, it's going to start as soon as I change the slide, but it is the recap video for the Social Butterflies. We do a signature social event every year, and it kind of stopped before the pandemic because of the pandemic. And it's a live band, a DJ, and we do a signature sangria menu that we curate with the restaurant or location that we've used. We've done it at Alibi Hotel. We did it at Bastille Kitchen, which is now Moo in the Seaport. We did it at 222 before I moved to Post Office Square. And then most recently, we ended up doing our first one back in August, was an outdoor location, and it was Garage B Events in Brighton. And we actually found out about that venue because of Alyssa DiPasquale, who's actually an alum of SHA as well. And she was a speaker in one of my classes, and we ended up networking with her, and she became a client eventually. And she also gave us the in to our new location. So this is the recap video for it. I can get to it. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Val. That was so
You're welcome.
interesting. I learned a lot. And I was kind of curious, you said that this program turned you from just event planners to business owners. And would you say there's a particular class in the MMH or a professor or something that you feel like really kind of flipped that switch for you or gave you the skills you needed? Just curious.
I think the class that did it was definitely financial accounting, because I struggled a lot in the beginning with that class, but I feel like because it was challenging, it pushed you to really get through it, and it forced me to like know more about a side of my business that like I wasn't really trying to focus on before initially. Like I think when you think about like certain things that you don't like doing in your business, you try to delegate somebody else to do it, or you're seeking other answers for it. But it forced me to like actually understand it, and I know better now what I'm asking for in business.
Very cool. Okay.
And the professor that did it was Professor Lambs.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks, Val. Does anybody want to ask Val a question? All right. Okay, well, we'll move forward.
No
We'll move
worries.
on to you, Dorian, and then Val. I know you have to leave us a little bit early. Feel free to hop off whenever you need to, but um, I'm so appreciative. Oh, I did want to ask one question. You said that because the degree is a niche master's degree, you do find yourself explaining to people what the letters behind your name mean.
Mhm.
And what kind of response have you gotten? Now, you didn't necessarily get this degree and then start interviewing and going to job interviews and getting feedback from employers on it.
Right.
But when you explain it, like, what's the feedback that you get? People say, I've never heard of that degree, or like, I don't know, what's the
I've
response?
gotten that a couple of times that people are like, "Oh, you could do that? That's like you can focus that much?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a whole branch of something to be able to learn about." But
Interesting.
yeah, more so that people haven't heard about it, or that it's really interesting for people to like be like, "Oh, I didn't think that you could get much more in depth with it than beyond like an MBA, or like
Mhm.
just getting some type of other business degree that like there's obviously not as much of a focus in those degrees for specific hospitality um, career paths. Um, but people have just been like more so interested to just know like what did you learn? What classes did you get out of it? Like what concepts do you feel like you really still know and still remember and still apply now?
Cool. Good to know. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Dorian, I'm gonna pull your slide up, and sorry, I'm a little out of practice with my Zoom. I just want to share it full screen. Hang on. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, Dorian, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Meg. I think the easiest way for me to reflect upon my career in a nice little metaphor, well, here you have a little roadmap, which I think is nice, but also something that I think about a lot is almost like a funnel effect. And I'll go into that a little bit detailed as I continue. So I grew up in Sonoma, California. And if you know Sonoma, you know it's a huge wine country tourist town. And I think that was something that I took for granted until I was an adult and I could actually appreciate how much hospitality was in my life at such a young age before I could, even realize. And there's two comments that I think are funny that I always like to share when I talk about myself. When I was a kid, like before I hit middle school, my dream job, and I told everyone this, my dream job was that I was going to be a GM at a Ritz-Carlton. And I think when you're a kid, people make it out to being like, oh, she watches too much Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, or she watches too many movies, or, the like unrealistic, it's such a weird hypothetical dream job. No, every kid's like, I want to be a doctor, a scientist. And I was like, I want to manage a hotel and live in the top floor. So I think that's funny thing that I remember about my childhood. Same with the hostess with the mostess. Anytime we had family or friends over, I would always go out of my way to be like accommodating. I wanted to set up snacks or greet them at the door. Or one year we held a holiday party and I burned a song, like songs into a CD so I could hand out a little CD for the songs. And as a kid, I recognized those traits in myself. So I knew that like going into the hospitality world was what I wanted to do. So that brought me to SHA. So I did my undergraduate degree in SHA. I started in 2017 and I finished in 3.5 years. So that I was a December graduate in 2020, spring of 21. When I started in SHA, I applied early decision 1. Like I knew this is exactly what I wanted to do. And I took every class that I could possibly take in SHA, which had me on track not only to finish early, but with a whole lot of credits that I needed to fill in other places. So that's when I picked up my Questrom minor. And I think picking up a general business minor helped me get a sense of the business world a lot more than just hotels and hospitality, because in SHA we do such a great job of focusing on, you know, something so small, but branching back out to Questrom, I think opened my eyes to a little bit of a greater business understanding. And then of course, you know, you get the stereotypes of Questrom students. So I took it on as my responsibility to be that not all Questrom students are snakes. I don't know if people still say that, but they did when I was there. When I was in my undergraduate degree, I did 3 different jobs, internships. I started as an event production intern, and props to you, Valerie, because that was not for me. And I'm glad that I had an internship that I didn't love, because it opened my eyes back out to, you know, what I did love and what I did want to do. So back to the funnel kind of thing, like you start to narrow down to a sect and maybe you realize like that's not for you. And I think having that experience was validating, because I don't know, knowing that I tried something and it wasn't for me allowed me an opportunity to pivot. So my next summer, I was a Marriott operations intern. And even though I was cleaning rooms and working in the kitchen and doing all sorts of stuff, like basically running this tiny little courtyard in the middle of nowhere, California, to me, I was like, okay, now we're on the right track. Like we're getting somewhere. This is something that I'm a lot more interested in. So I continued down the hotel path, and the general manager of that Marriott actually connected me to the manager at the Westin Copley Place in Boston. So I transferred to the Westin Copley and was a front desk agent for a little over a year. And when I was in hotel operations, I was like now starting to get the gist, like, okay, this might be what I want to do. I like the guest facing experience. I like being a part of the operation. But in school, I was taking more financial classes. So I was in Questrom's accounting classes. I was in SHA's accounting classes. I was in revenue management classes. So my work was saying operations, but what I liked academically was saying accounting, math, finance. So December, January, when I finished my bachelor's degree, obviously it was the beginning of COVID times. I remember Professor Moeller, we would talk about, this is going on in China, it's only a matter of time until it comes to the United States. So I started my master's degree that spring semester of 21, and 21. And I remember trying to pick classes that I thought would push me to explore what I found a knack for during my undergraduate degree, which was like the accounting and finance classes. So I didn't actually, funny enough, everyone talks about Professor Lands. In my years as an undergrad and as a grad student, I did not have Professor Lands as a professor, which seems wild and crazy. And I think I'm the anomaly, because every student has had Professor Lands, and I know Professor Lands, and we've connected, around all sorts of stuff when I was a student, but I was kind of on the opposite track. I was taking Postolos's class and Professor Jung's class and Professor Coleman, I was in the finance world. So funny, interesting to know that even if, you're looking through classes and there's things that might sound different, or you can structure your schedule to take classes that are appealing to you. So marketing and like any visual creative class was the opposite of what I was looking for. So to have the opportunity to take more financial based classes was definitely a benefit for me. And I mentioned a few things in my slide here. One is STAR reports, and this is like the most random comment to bring up in a presentation like this, but we talked about STAR reports a lot. Like any hotel finance class, we talked about STAR reports and occupancy and ADR and RevPAR. And I wanted to bring it up because today in my career, every week we're looking at our STAR reports, and it's such like a meta moment to be like, these fake reports that we were looking at from textbooks, like they're real, and I'm looking at them every day when I'm doing my forecast. So funny little things that are valuable, that we really are taking the skills that we learned in class every day and applying them to my current job. And then I want to mention two other things. Professor Coleman, he teaches the hotel development class in the master's program, and he is the number one reason why I am where I am today. So networking and creating relationships with your professors is, I think every single alumni gives that advice, like, oh, network with your professors, they'll, have conversations, but I truly can't push that enough, like how valuable and important it is. And then my work experience when I was doing my master's was with Access Point Financial, and they're a like hospitality loan lending company. So I was working like in the underwriting and data analysis for that company. So a great opportunity. I know they're around SHA a lot. So currently, my role, I work for the Four Seasons. When I finished my master's degree, Professor Coleman had connected me to the general manager of the Four Seasons New Orleans, and she connected me to somebody else, and they connected me to somebody else. And it was probably like 10 conversations that I had with different Four Seasons employees. Some worked in corporate, some worked on property. It was like a maze of people, but I ended up being offered, like, it was a unique opportunity. So I started as a finance MIT, which is a manager in training. And I think when I got that role, I was a little discouraged by the title. Like, when you finish a master's program, having in training at the end of your title isn't something that anyone, I think, would really want to hear. Like, I just spent all this time doing my undergraduate degree, doing my master's degree, and now I am in the real world and I'm in training. So I kind of stored that in my head and used it as fuel to like push myself to not be in training anymore and push myself for a promotion. So typically with Four Seasons, a manager in training program lasts 12 to 18 months, depending on what sector you're in. So finance tends to be a little bit longer, but in a rooms division or food and beverage division, there's usually more opportunity to grow. I started my finance MIT in July, and I was promoted to staff accountant in January. So a very short MIT. I was only at MIT for 6 months, which I was very happy about because as I mentioned, did not like the title MIT. So now I am in a management role in the accounting department of the hotel, right? So I manage a relatively small team here, but the fun thing about Four Seasons is we also work with an offsite company that's located in India. So my team on property is small, but I manage a larger team sort of remotely through our offshoring, which was a hurdle all on its own, but is something that I've very much appreciated. And a few things that I think helped contribute to my success in my career. And it's weird to say the word success when I'm talking about my career, because I haven't been in my role for very long, but all of my like being promoted so quickly, my general manager, like there's been nothing but praise for my understanding of the industry and how it works and how it functions. And I think understanding from an accounting side and just from a management side, like I worked in housekeeping, I worked as a front desk agent, I worked in restaurants, and I think those are all skills that even though I'm not using those skills in my day-to-day accounting job, I'm using those, what I learned and what it's like to be an employee in those roles. And I think it's helped my management and understanding of the hotel's operations. And yeah, I think being in the program for so long and being able to really find and take classes that were like along the path I wanted to go on helped me like basically get my, like, it's weird to say this is my dream job because like who wants to work in accounting and crunch numbers all day, but it like genuinely is my dream job. And I tell my boss that all the time, that like, because people, poke fun about how I like probably, hate my job and how I have too much personality to work in accounting and all that sort of stuff. But this is truly like exactly, where I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing. And I think, that success of being promoted so fast, I got a raise like last week out of the blue, little things like that. And the appreciation from my upper management team, I definitely, like, I know it comes from all the time and effort that I put into both my undergrad and graduate program. And because I work for the Four Seasons, I know we talk like a lot about, going into a traditional hotel role coming out of SHA, because that's what people expect. They expect Marriott employees and Hilton and Four Seasons and, all, brands. But I do think there are definite perks of actually, going straight and working in hotels. In the past, not even year and a few months since I started with the Four Seasons, I've gone to the Bahamas. I've done all sorts of stuff because of the Four Seasons and the opportunities that they've provided me. So I have nothing but good things to say about Four Seasons and my job, I guess.
Dorian, can I ask a question? So you could have been a finance MIT with just a bachelor's degree, right?
They do. So you can, the MIT program is like property specific. So like any hotel, any Four Seasons that wants an MIT, like puts out feelers to see if there's someone there. And I think they take the most like qualified person that they can get. So could I have gotten my role with just my bachelor's? Yes. Would I have excelled and been promoted as quickly? Probably not.
Okay.
And
That's what I wanted to know. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it gave you that edge when you were hired to move up more quickly, having had an MMH.
Yeah, I think so. And my professors and my
And
managers,
performing extremely well too. But yeah.
well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
my
Okay.
management team here like saw how much drive I have and how successful that I want to be. And I think being a part of the MMH program, like it's those same kind of students. It's the same, the push for success and like being in a specialized program, what you want to do. So being able to articulate that to my managers that like, this is what I want to be doing. I've been studying this. I have gone to school for this. I'm in this role now, but in 5 years, based on what the classes I took and what I learned, like I know what opportunities are out there and I know, where I can go with them. And I think having that sort of under my belt showed my management team that like this is someone that's committed to this industry long term. This is someone that we want to invest our time and our energy into developing, because it's the kind of person that theoretically, would stay stay with the company and grow with the company and, provide new interesting ideas, because it does take a certain kind of person to want to be in a small
Yeah.
specialized program.
So you're saying that the extra year of the MMH gave you time to refine your career goals and get clarity on where you fit in the market, so you knew how to pitch yourself when you were done in a way that maybe you wouldn't have been able to do so confidently right out of undergrad.
Definitely. I think
Okay.
taking Professor Coleman's development class, like I didn't know that was even like I didn't know that was a thing, I mean,
Right.
I think
Right.
we put a lot of light and attention to hotel operations, front desk agents, front office managers, housekeeping managers, food and beverage managers, but there's so much out there, especially in the financial sector, that doesn't get the same exposure until I started taking those classes in my MMH.
Okay. And that was something that Val said too, was that the professors tailor the course content to your career goals, that it's not like it's just this MMH program in a box, that they deliver the same content and hopefully you just grab onto something that sounds like something that will help you in your career goals, that you felt like the material was almost tailored or catered to the goals that you were waking up to professionally while in the program.
Yeah, and I think that's the nice thing about having like smaller class sizes, because it's like you actually have a relationship with your professor. Like you can bounce ideas off. Oh, I saw this job, I was thinking about doing this, and you can form a relationship and get actual knowledge or feedback or criticism from a professor that learns more about you instead of, your big
Yep.
lecture.
Yeah. And what a great lesson too, in, your ego was looking at the manager training opportunity and your ego was saying no. And yet then you say yes. 6 months later, you're in a completely different space than you started. And I feel like that's just such a great lesson, that titles can be misleading. There's that great Sheryl Sandberg quote where she says, if you're offered a seat on a rocket ship, you don't ask where to sit, you just get on. And I feel like if there is something about an organization that you feel a pull, does it matter what the job title is? Say yes, get in there, prove your worth, begin to network, and you can be in a completely different place 6 months to a year later. In hospitality, it can move even faster than that, right? So I think that's such a great real life lesson. Cool. Well, thanks, Dorian. Thanks.
Thank
Does anyone
you.
have any questions for Dorian? All right, Gabe, we'll move on to you and you will close us out.
All right. Well, thanks, Meg, very much for inviting me to speak, and thanks as well to the others here, Valerie and Dorian, for your contributions. I'll apologize in advance for not having as a colorful and well-designed presentation here, definitely a little bit streamlined. So I'm a bit of an anomaly as far as the pathway that I took to the hospitality industry. Certainly isn't something that is the most direct route into asset management and the hotel space in general. So I actually did my undergrad at Connecticut College in liberal arts degree. I double majored in East Asian studies with a Chinese concentration and Hispanic studies. And I always thought that I wanted to be in international relations and diplomacy. Initially, I did a lot of independent research in immigration policy. I interned for a immigration department for a law firm in New York City. And I ended up winding out of college when I graduated in 2012, working for a foreign academic credential evaluation and translation company in New York City. So right now you're probably asking yourself, well, none of that sounds like hospitality. So how does this all fit into place? So I actually always just had a real passion for the hospitality industry, and specifically in food and beverage. My father was an ex-chef. He owned a restaurant in Boston on Harvard Ave. It used to be called Occasional Table, and now there's a Japanese restaurant called Genki Ya, if anybody's familiar with that. This was before I was born, but I grew up just always cooking with him in our home. It was part of the history of my family. My grandfather and my great uncles on my father's side sort of took old soda shops in New York City area and flipped them. And also they ran the kitchen in the Barbizon Hotel for Women. So this was always sort of part of my past and my history of my family, and it was something I was always excited about. I worked in catering and events all through college and high school, and in front of house and also in back of house. And I just always really enjoyed cooking myself. So, I was working in New York at this translation firm, and I actually took a year and I taught English in China in between this. And I came back, I'm thinking about, where everything's going for me and what I'm truly interested in. I wanted to find a way to connect my passion, hospitality, to what I did professionally. So this is when I started my transformation out of foreign language and into hotels and hospitality. So first, I ended up working in wholesale seafood for a company called The Lobster Place, which if you've ever been in New York City, there's a really big seafood market in Chelsea Market that they own. So I worked for them on wholesale seafood, which was a great opportunity for me to get into all these different restaurants in the area. But I found myself missing some of the more administrative and business focused responsibilities that I had had at this translation firm. So I pivoted first into culinary school because I wanted to improve my skills in the kitchen. I got a culinary degree at the International Culinary Center, worked in a couple of restaurants in New York City, and then ultimately transitioned back into operations, working for a corporate catering company in Manhattan. So at this point, I've had the benefit of doing a number of different things in a very short period of time. And it gave me a great opportunity to sort of just sit back and think about, how can I combine all the things that I love? My love for foreign language, my love for general business, as well as for hospitality. And that's when hotels really started standing out to me. It's a global industry, it involves people from all walks of life and all over the world. At the heart of it, it's all about welcoming people, whoever they are, and making them feel comfortable and having a good time. And there's a great aspect of that culinary side as well, and all the restaurants and catering and et cetera that's involved in the industry. So what I found was that as I was looking at jobs, a lot of them highlighted wanting to have specific education in hospitality. Almost every posting that I looked at looked for a degree in hospitality or something related, or past experience in hospitality. So it was pretty high barrier to entry, especially for some of the more operational focused roles. I think in the kitchen, I certainly could have entered into those a little bit more easily. So that's when I started looking into programs, and the MMH really stood out to me. I was already looking to sort of move out of New York into a little bit more of a manageable city. But Boston is also one of the best hospitality cities in the country and arguably in the world. So, not only that, but Boston University and the School of Hospitality having such a long tenure, is just a great opportunity to get involved in a place that I felt confident that I was really going to be able to not only gain a really great education in a field that I was very interested in, and as both Valerie and Dorian have alluded to, and also a very focused program, but also do it in a time frame that was manageable for me. Having been in a couple of different, different academic programs, I was ready to sort of expedite my learning, and having a 1-year program, a very condensed, and intensive course load, but that was something that was attractive to me. And so that's why I joined the MMH. I really wanted to fill in the blanks that I had from my liberal arts degree. Certainly was not a focus on business skills, didn't have any background in finance and accounting, revenue management, anything like that. So this was a great opportunity for me to gain a lot of knowledge in those areas that I really felt like I had to develop quickly in order to succeed in the industry. And originally I thought, I want to be in food and beverage management. I worked in Fairmont Copley Plaza the first semester that I was in the program in the stewarding department as a stewarding manager. It was a great way to sort of break into the hotel world, understand the operation. I think when you're in the kitchen, kitchen and rooms, I think, are probably the two departments where you really see everything. And also, I mean, you could say the same about accounting, I suppose. And I know Dorian also alluded to that because you're just seeing everything that happens in the operation. But that was a really great exposure for me. And, I was ready to go on this trajectory, but the coursework at the MMH really opened my eyes up to a number of different areas that I had never considered. So I had never really thought about consulting, and certainly I hadn't really thought about the real estate side. Math and numbers was never something that I thought I was going to be involved with. But I just really found that I had a real interest in the content of the ownership strategies course and the real estate finance and development course. So those were taught. The ownership strategies course was taught by Jonathan Jager, who is an alum and also worked for LWHA Hospitality, which is a hospitality consulting firm that also does a lot of appraisal work. And then the real estate finance and development class at the time was taught by Professor Quagg, who I know is no longer with the program, and Sebastian Colella from Pinnacle Advisory, which is another hotel advisory firm located in the Boston area. So it was great to have an opportunity to not only get all the content from these courses, but to have these individuals with real world experience teaching them the content to me. And be able to connect everything that they were talking about to real scenarios that took place. It really brought everything to life. And then they also brought in all their industry colleagues, and it was a phenomenal opportunity for networking for myself. I've maintained all of the relationships that I made through the program. I made a point of going up and talking to people after they came in and as guest speakers. And, both of the jobs that I have now are directly related to relationships that I made while I was in, or the job that I have now and the other jobs that I've had since graduating from the program, I should say, are directly related to the relationships that I was able to make while I was in the program. So, after I sort of shifted into the hotel consulting world, there was one guest speaker who came from CHM Warnick, which is a large hotel, the largest hotel asset management firm in the United States. They have a portfolio of over about 70 hotels. Really found what they were doing quite interesting. Asset management is a great way to be involved in all areas of the operation. You're talking marketing strategy, revenue management, accounting and finance. You're talking about food and beverage strategy. The whole idea is that you're maintaining not only the real estate of the building, but also the overall strategy and working and finding, the best use for every aspect of the hotel and how you can continue to grow and improve performance. So I really love that strategic sort of view, the high level view, where you sort of get a piece of everything and everything is a little bit different. You get to work with a lot of different hotels. There's that travel component. So I sort of became attracted to that. Did my internship with TR Engel Group, which is a small asset management firm based right in Newton. And then after a year with them, I ended up staying in contact with the individuals who came from CHM Warnick, and I transitioned over to their firm to gain a little bit more experience and accelerate my growth in the industry. And only recently now I've taken a job with the Prakashani companies as a vice president of asset management. So currently now I'm overseeing 7 different hotel properties located within the United States. Everything from evaluating cash flow and managing relationship with our investor clients, managing relationships with the brands, being involved with the operations team, in review of our strategy in marketing and sales and accounting, thinking about our food and beverage outlets and how we can continue to elevate experience and manage costs and deal with this lovely staffing issues that we're facing in the industry as well. So, a really multifaceted part of the industry, and I just really enjoy it. And I think having so many different touch points within that MMH program in such a short period of time really helped prepare me to be able to speak towards a lot of these things. And the program, at least when I was in it, I think it was the second year, very operationally focused at that time. There wasn't any concentrations, but there were electives that you could take. So I think it's great that more concentrations have been added. But I think that operational focus is really important because in asset management, in particular, you really need to be able to connect to the operations team. So having worked in the industry and then also combined with that aspect of the program, it really allows you to understand, what the operations team is doing, how things work, and sort of speak to those different things. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I haven't touched on yet. I know my peers here have also sort of talked about interviewing and networking and sort of how I've talked about the MMH. I don't think anybody has ever asked me actually, what's the difference between this and an MBA. When I've gone into an interview, I think it's only ever been seen as a benefit because I'm looking for jobs in hospitality, and this is a very focused degree specific to that, that people really appreciate the interest. And I think it does display a specific level of, I've got a passion in this topic. I made this decision not to take something more general because this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And again, being able to highlight some of the courses and the relationships that I made with, industry professionals, it all just really has allowed me to accelerate my career and continue to grow, and very thankful for that. I'll leave it there now that I've
I've never thought about that, Gabe, that I could see how an employer would view the MMH as a commitment to the industry. An MBA is so general, it can be taken in a million different directions, but there is something about an MMH where it's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to try to market this outside. Like, I'm pretty committed to staying in hospitality. And I actually did not know that you didn't come from a business background. For some reason, I just assumed that was what your undergrad was in. So this MMH gave you the business acumen that you needed to be taken seriously when you did move into consulting, real estate. And it sounds like it opened up your professional network quite a bit. You said that the job that you have now, and actually every job you've had after the MMH, was through a relationship that you built during that time. And then something else that came to me while you were speaking is, it's not like you went into this program at the beginning going, I'm going to move into consulting and real estate. You were intrigued by the program. The coursework looked interesting. You knew you wanted to work in hospitality, and then you lived into the answer of how you were going to use this degree. It's not like you had a very clear vision at the beginning. You got in there, you sat through the class, and participated and was fully engaged, but it's not a passive process.
Yeah, most of the time. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think some people would like school to work that way, but engage with your professors, build your professional network, and then you live into what's next and how you are going, what is waiting for you at the end. But it wasn't necessarily something that you could have ever predicted at the beginning.
That's right. Yeah. It wasn't something I had ever thought about or knew existed, really.
Yeah.
So.
Very cool. Great. Does anyone have any questions for Gabe? All right. Well, really, I can't thank you enough, panelists. This is really great. And I have to be honest, like I've learned a lot. I talk to prospective MMH students all the time. I talk to them while they're in the program. And then after that, I don't really, right? Like there's only so many hours in a day. I don't get to keep in touch and hear about the value of the degree in the market. And this has been really valuable for me and gives me a lot to pass on to our faculty, to our dean. And then also, if it's okay and with your permission, you know, if we ever use any of this in terms of quotes for marketing and things like that, I'll run it by you just to make sure. But I've learned a lot because I get questions from prospective students all the time. What does MMH mean on a resume? How do employers view it compared with other master's degrees that I can get? What is this like guarantee? Like, what's the guarantee? Which, you know, usually there's not really a guarantee with anything that you do in life, but it certainly makes it easier. And Dorian, like you said, you got clarity through this program of your value add in the industry that you didn't necessarily have at the end of undergrad. Again, I guess I just never really thought about that before. So I've got a lot of really good notes here to pass along, and I just so appreciate you taking time out of your day. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Meg, for bringing it. It's always nice to get an email from you or a message from you to know that like we didn't all just graduate and then disperse out into the world with no connection back. So it's nice to hear from you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, believe me, we have to like put limits on ourselves. Otherwise we would want to use you all for like everything. So we won't do that to you. We know you're busy, but we really, really appreciate your insights, and congratulations on your promotion. I
Thanks.
did not know that. So that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.